It's covered up. This is our, hang on, here we go. The book that I sent you, I tried to make a copy of the book of everything that you might need. The scoring of the book can be confusing at first, but basically it goes over it so you can refer to it here. The scoring, we'll talk about that in a minute. There are additional notes that go with the book that they update every once in a while. It's not really consistent. Just as they see additions needed, they will send out additional notes. The January 2019 is the latest one. What I like to do is when I get these notes, I cut them out and I tape, or I have some re-stickable glue that I stick them in the book that goes with each section. That helps me keep up with it so that I'm not flipping back and forth and wondering if I forgot something on that page. Also, the documentation. This is a list of all of the documents that you will need when you have your assessment. It's long. There's a lot. Just be aware of that. The best way that I have seen a person organize this, she had a tote, just a plastic container that was wide enough to hang those hanging file folders in. And she had a file folder for each of the items. So let me scroll back up. You can see item 1, she had a file folder for that. Then here's item 2, she had a file folder for that, and 3 and 4 and so on. So she had that in 2 totes, 2 containers. I've also seen people have gigantic 3-ring binders, and they put the page protectors in, or the page holders, whatever you call them, and they have the documents in giant 3-ring binders. Those are 2 good ways to have things organized, but you have to have all of this in one spot for the assessor to see when they come out, because we can't just, it takes, they say 4 hours, but it takes longer than 4 hours to do this assessment. So for me anyway, because when I come, we are not the ones that do the final official one. You have to have a practice assessment, and we do that. And my goal is to get you ready for the real assessment. So I won't just say, yeah, you don't have all of this stuff. I'll try to tell you exactly what you're missing and where you can find it and where to put it. And so it takes a while. So the better organized you are before we get there, the quicker it will be and the better it will be for everybody. And then if you have specific questions for the star rating or QRIS questions, Brandy Fields, she's their director. She's no longer the assistant director, but this is her contact information, and you can contact her with specific questions for the star rating system. Okay, so I also have the PowerPoint pulled up. That's not it. There we go. I probably won't stick to this. Why is it paused? I don't know. Can y'all see me?
Yes.
Okay, it said paused, and I don't know why. Let's see if I can unpause it. Resume share. Okay, that was weird. Okay, so I probably won't go right by the PowerPoint. You have it, but I like to go through the book. So normally this training is 2 hours. We're going to try to do it now in about 40 minutes. So hang on. But if you have questions, please interrupt and ask them as we go, because if you don't, you might forget. And I don't want that to happen. That happens to me a lot. Okay. So you can see this is the first item. It's staff orientation. this, when you open the book, if you had a book, this would be the left page. And then this would be the right side of the page, the right side of the book. So this is where I do the scoring. And these are the questions that you have to answer and show documentation for. The left side is just kind of additional information and to help you to figure out the right side. But let's talk about scoring really quick. So you can see there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. This first column is inadequate. And it's kind of confusing because the questions are like it's a double negative. So there is no orientation for new staff. Well, no, hopefully there is orientation for new staff. So you want these in column 1 to be a no. Everything else you're trying to get a yes. Okay, but column 1 you want to be a no. So if you do get a yes in this first column, you automatically get a 1. Okay, so that's why we're looking for no's, which is confusing. Okay, so then we look at column 3 and we're looking for yeses. And every time you see a D, that's where your documentation comes in. And then you can look back at your list of documentation and compare it. And you can check off that list if you want to, or you can use the book. So if you have a yes in half of these, then you can get a 3. So now there's 3 there, so it's not an even number. So you'd have to get 2 out of the 3 yeses to get a 3 here. So if you had a yes in 3.1 and a yes in 3.2 and a no in 3.3, well, you would actually get a 2. You have to have all yeses in a column to get that number. So let's just look at 5. If you had a yes in 5.1, a yes in 5.2, and a no in 5.3, you'd get a 4. If you had all yeses, you'd get a 5, and then we'd move over to 7. Does that make sense? Very confusing. You get the hang of it after you do it for a while, but you don't have to score. Don't worry about that. Another thing I want to mention, so you'll get a score down here on each item, and then you'll get an overall score. Your overall score does not have to be a high number to get a good star rating. I don't want to say the number because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but you don't have to get a 5, 6, or 7 to get a good star rating, okay, overall. So don't worry if you get a 1 in an area, it's okay. You can still get a better overall score to get a good star rating. Okay, I just let somebody in. Who did I let in? Okay, India, you with us?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning. We are recording. Are you okay with that?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. So we have everybody with us, almost. That's cool. All right. So we are recording to use this for future trainings. So, and we need you to stay on the whole time, and you can stay muted. That's totally fine. Okay. So that was how we do India. We just talked about scoring. This is one of the handouts you got. This talks about scoring the past. You can read this section right here and catch up. Okay, so we're going to move on and we're going to talk about each item quickly. And stop me if you have questions, but you have to unmute yourself because I can't see everybody now on this little side view. Okay, so the first.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question on the staff orientation. So say, for instance, if we don't have all the information like the handbooks and the personnel policy and the job description, with the other program that's connected to you, will they help us get that stuff that we need in order to get you guys out to be ready when you come out? I think it's the enhancement program.
I don't think they can't pull documentation for you. You have to pull that for yourself. So you have to look at all your stuff. This is a big job. It's a real big
Yeah.
job, and it takes people months to prepare. So you need to look at that documentation list. That's the easiest way, I think, to do it. And then
Okay.
pull all of those things. Now, here's another thing. You may need one piece of documentation in item 1, and you may need it in another item. Make a copy and put it in your, however you're organized, if it's a 3-ring binder, if it's a tote, whatever you're going to do. Put multiple copies wherever they need to go, because the person coming out to do the assessment is not going to search and dig. They will look where it's supposed to be, and if it's not there, if they happen to see it later, great. But if not, they will tell you. What normally will happen is we'll look through the documentation item by item. And after I get a few items into it, if I'm missing pieces, I will tell you. You can go find it and bring it to me before I leave. That's how the real assessment goes, okay? So
Okay.
the pass consists of an interview. So you will sit down with the assessor and you'll go through the whole book. You'll go through all of the items, and they will ask you all of these questions, and they will mark a yes or a no in each one. That takes about 2 hours if you're not interrupted. And we all know there's always going to be an interruption. So then you put the assessor alone somewhere. Maybe it's left in your office or another place where they can not be interrupted. And then they go through the documentation without you. So you need to be available, but you don't have to be sitting there. And then as they're missing pieces, they can let you know. And then you can try to find those while they're still there. Now, after the assessor leaves, you're not allowed to turn in other things. So that's why you want to be super, super organized, and you want to have everything you possibly can while they're there so that you get the proper score. When we talk about, there's going to be some places in here we talk about 1 year of documentation must be provided and verified to mark that a policy or procedure is reviewed annually. It's not 1 year, it's 3 years. So if I see, let's try to scoot y'all over here. Right here on 7.2, the written orientation procedures are reviewed annually. I need you to show me 3 years worth. So your procedures, policy manual, whatever you call it, that front page where it says updated at the bottom and you have the date, I need to see 3 years worth of that to prove that it's done annually. Does that make sense? You can't just show me the previous year and say, yeah, we've done this annually. The pass requires you to show the past 3 years. The other thing is that what we're asking is based on what you currently do, not what you used to do or what you plan to do in the future, but what you are doing right now. So make sure that you answer that appropriately. And if you're not doing something that you think you need to be doing, you need to implement it before you start this whole thing. Okay. So we're looking at staff orientation, and they're wanting to make sure that you are providing orientation for your staff. And you're giving feedback here on 5.1. Y'all are going to have to look through these to know that I can't read every question to you. Even if we had 2 hours, I couldn't read every question to you and go through this the right way. So when you see these asterisks, that's when you look back over on the left page, and that tells you what you're looking for here. So if it says must, like this does, you must include all of these things. You can have other stuff too, but it has to include all of these things. Sometimes, and I'll try to point it out, it will say may. May means these are suggestions. You can include these, you don't have to. But when it says must, you have to do all of them. Now, when it's got a system, there's several items that say a system to ensure. you have to check all these boxes. So it's got to be tangible, concrete evidence, involve multiple people, and a defined system of accountability. So let's look at this one. So written feedback about the orientation process is obtained from newly hired staff at the conclusion of the introductory or probation period. So it's wanting to know, is there a system in place? When you do your interview, you need to say all three things. When you show your documentation, you only have to show two of those things. So remember, this is a system. Tangible concrete evidence is usually paper. You've got a paper that tells all the things about whatever the system is asking. So that's tangible concrete evidence. Involved in multiple individuals, sign the paper. So there's at least two signatures, yours and the person's. If it's like in this instance, it's the employee. So you want signed by two people that shows multiple individuals were involved. So you've got your two things proven right there. That's your documentation. Now, in your interview with the assessor, you need to tell them about this defined process of accountability. So how are you going to prove that you do it, not relying on your memory, not relying on you to look at a paper calendar? For Head Start folks, you have somebody in the office making sure that you do this. That is your defined process of accountability. You say, well, so-and-so, I have to turn these papers into her in HR, and she signs off on them, and I have to do that for every new hire. Or however you do it at your center. You need to say the three things in the system, but you only have to show two in documentation, okay? That goes for every system that we're going to talk about. Okay, the second thing is supervision and performance appraisal. This is asking if you have a written annual performance for all of your teaching staff, or all of your, so if you have, I don't know if you have co-teachers or just one teacher or a teacher and assistant or aides, whatever. So it's asking that every teaching staff has a written annual performance appraisal. So how are they doing? Are they participating in it? Is it a written appraisal? Is it annual? Does it include goals and professional development for the upcoming year? So I know Head Start, I've seen your papers, you have it, and you have to have it done. Because remember, there's going to be this system in place for just about everything. Just be prepared for that. So then it's asking, is it objective or behavior-based? Does it differentiate by role? This is where people get hung up. If you have teachers with different titles, it needs to be different. Your performance evaluation needs to be different from them. It can't say the same thing on everybody's. If they have different responsibilities, it needs to be specific. And then, are you getting multiple feedback? So this has got to be more than one. It's not just that evaluation that you do. Are you getting feedback from parents or coworkers? Are you going in and observing? Are you doing multiple sources of evidence there? And then, are they formally observed by you at least 3 times a year? Are you giving written feedback? You got to look at all of those. The third item is staff development. So we're wanting to make sure that you provide training for your staff. And here is the tricky part again, is it job specific? So do you as an administrator have job specific training, like on budgeting or whatever? And then do your teachers have job specific training? So it's wanting to know that. The second line, it's asking about the number of training hours. Now we know minimum standards is 12, then you also have your health and safety areas, but this minimum is asking for 15 or more clock hours. Then to even get a 5, they want 20 or more. But here is something to consider. Are you maintaining a training log to keep track of your staff development? Training log can be as simple as a sheet of paper on the front of their employee file, or it can be an Excel spreadsheet. But they want to know that you're keeping track and not having to flip through that employee file every time looking to see how many hours. Because you'll get to the end of the year and you'll, oh no, Mrs. So-and-so is missing 5, 6 hours. So they want it on the front. They want it easily accessible, some type of training log that you're keeping track and you're adding up those hours every time. Also wanting to know, are you making your teachers, are aware of the publicly funded training for your teachers? So like us, we provide child development resources in whatever county you're in. It's called something different, but whoever is providing the free trainings for your teachers, make sure that you have that. And then there's a system in place to support that professional development. Okay, let's move on to compensation. So this is tricky now for you Head Start folks. A written salary scale available to everyone. I know in Tuscaloosa, or in our counties that we serve, they've worked to make sure that that's available now because they were getting dinged for this. They were getting no's here. So making sure that everybody knows, you don't have to say what every specific teacher makes, but you can make sure that they know the salary range or the hourly range for each position. And then is it reviewed, has it been reviewed at least twice within the last 5 years? You've got to show documentation for that. For internal and external equity, it talks about internal and external equity on the left page or the previous page. So within the relationship between different jobs in an organization and outside centers or organizations, are you comparable to those? The second line, does your salary differentiate between, usually you get the education and the training, and you get the salary can differentiate between years of experience, but I've never seen this on 7.2. So most people, all people I've experienced get a no here because they don't get an increase in salary based on professional credentials. That's a tricky one. The third line is asking about salary increases in the last 2 years and each of the last 3 years. And then are you providing merit increases in salary? Okay, benefits, this one's hard. So if you're Head Start, you have to get this from your main office and you need to have a copy of it and you need to be aware of these percentages. Highlight those for the assessor and they will love you for it, because when we have to look and dig, it's hard and a lot of times it's not there. Make sure when you get the Head Start folks, when you're getting this from your head office, that you have this information. If you are your own business, you probably don't have benefits. It's just simple as that. It's hard to provide that. So you can take a 1 on this and just move on. It's okay. It's not going to hurt your, I mean, it will hurt your overall score, but it won't necessarily keep you from getting the star rating that you're going for, okay? All right, the next line is sick days, personal days. How many are you offering? Up to 12. Then the next line, the third line, is paid vacation. How many days? Up to 15. Pay attention to these asterisks. Make sure you're looking over at the left page. And then retirement options, matching, all of that stuff. And then here, this is where we want to see the line item in your budget, what you have set aside for professional development expenses or training. So do you have a line item for professional development expenses to pay for your teachers to have training or to go to conferences and stuff like that? Number 6 is staffing patterns and scheduling. So they're wanting to see if you've regrouped your children. Have you done it 6 times per year? Number 5.1 is another tricky thing. Do you have a person on staff who can go into a classroom at a moment's notice and fill in for a teacher who's sick or has to leave immediately? Most people don't. It's hard to afford that. So if you're Head Start, you have that family support person. I can't remember what you call them. That person is usually qualified to be a teacher, so you can count that person. But most privately owned centers, it's really hard. It does not count if you have a good sub that you can call and she can be there in 5 minutes. That does not count. It has to be a person in the building that's there all the time. Okay, so that one's tricky. And this, again, we're talking about regrouping and staff time for planning. Are the children there? Do they get at least 30 minutes? The third line, do you have staff there when children are present? And then this one allows for except the first and last hour, and then 2 or more teachers except the first and last hour. And then this one is, does the administrator, do you ever spend time in the classroom and how often? Okay, then we'll move to center operations. Now on this one, you'll see an O instead of a D. This is observation. So I don't have to see a piece of paper, but I'm looking for these things, these O's. So is your facility and your outdoor playground, does it appear to be safe? So I'm going to look. When the assessor gets there, you need to give them a tour. And they know what to look for. Now, this is not like the environmental rating scale. They're not going to measure the depth of your mulch and things like that. This is just appearance. We're just kind of giving it a once over, looking at it, making sure it looks safe. And this one does require documentation, a routine maintenance. We need to see at least 2 examples. This can be pest control. This can be your fire extinguisher where they've initialed it. This can be lawn care. Whatever maintenance agreement you have, we need to see at least 2 examples of that. And then here's that system. Do you have a system in place to make sure that that's occurring regularly? The second line here, is there a place for staff to meet? And then let's just look. So there's 4 asterisks there. This is one that must include. Is there a separate adult restroom, a storage area for personal belongings? It does not have to lock. And then an adult-sized chair or sofa in each classroom. So they're wanting to make sure that your teachers have somewhere that they can sit and be comfortable, not to take a break, but in the classroom. And then this one is talking about the break room. Do you have one? Do you have a place for teachers to meet with parents or conference or prep time outside of the classroom? Dual space is allowed. It can be your office if you're going to give that up. It can be the break room that could also be used as a conference room. It doesn't have to be a standalone place. And this one is very tricky. 7.2. I have to observe it. Is there a space dedicated to have a professional library on site? Now let's look at the asterisks. It must have a minimum of 25 resource books, okay? This is tough because a lot of people get information online now. I guess they're still wanting you to use resource books to make sure they're reputable sources, because you can find all kinds of crazy stuff out on the internet, and they want to make sure that it's good quality information. And then 12 issues of a journal, like Exchange or what NACY sends, not a parenting magazine or Cosmo or anything like that, but a legit early childhood education journal magazine. These are tough. Now, when I say library, it doesn't have to be a library. It can be a cabinet with this information in it. And what I recommend is you collect those books and those issues of a journal and put them all together in one spot so that it's easy for you to show. Okay? I think 25 is a lot, especially because we can get a lot online these days, but I don't make these rules. This is just how it's supposed to be for PASS. I know that Head Start, you get a lot of stuff online and it is good quality information because it's what's provided, but that doesn't count. It has to be a physical book, 25 of them. So this one is tough. Start collecting them now. All right, and then administrative space with an adult desk and workstation, chair, storage, place for private conversations, and then internet access, fax, copy machine, answer machine, things like that. Risk management. Okay, everybody has probably in your policy procedure, whatever your manual you call it, you probably have this information. However, it has to be labeled risk management, okay? If you call it something else now, change the name to risk management or you will not get credit for it. It's just one of those things, okay? So within your procedure manual, whatever you call it, you get to these pages that talks about these things. Just put a paper in front of it and call it risk management. As simple as that. Okay. Now, do you have a written risk management plan available? It's got to be written. Most of you would say yes. Is it available in each classroom? So each teacher needs a copy in their classroom. And is it reviewed annually? Remember, it has to be the past 3 years. So on that, in your documentation that you provide, I need you to give me one that has the past 3 years. On the front page, you just say updated or reviewed, and you put the date. And I need that for the past 3 years, okay? Second line is asking about allergies and things like that. Do you keep allergies posted in the classroom and have their information, chronic medical conditions, allergies kept on file in the office? Okay, that's one that I need to observe. They need to be kept in the classroom and in the office, so the teacher needs to be aware of it. If you're worried about confidentiality, it can be on the back of a cabinet. So when the cabinet's closed, nobody sees it. When you open the cabinet, you can easily see it. And then make sure there's a system in place. This one is kind of tricky, to make sure all teaching staff are aware, even substitutes. So how do you make sure that even your substitutes know about a child's chronic medical condition or any allergies that they have, okay? You got to make sure of that. And then it's asking on this third line about your like your fire drills, your tornado drills, those sort of things. Are you doing those? Practicing those twice a year. You're showing documentation, and then showing any improvements needed, and then a system in place. So what you can show for a system here is if you have like Outlook as your email, you can put that in your calendar and it pops up and goes bling and reminds you, but you cannot just rely on it written on a paper calendar. Okay, it can't be just you remembering to look, but a bling from your Outlook will remind you, and that's acceptable. Now, about this improvement needed. The latest additional notes require there to be improvements. Even if you think you've nailed it, everything's great, You need to show at least 2 in the past year. Okay? So make sure that you're writing down the improvements needed. Make sure that you've written 2 in the past year. Okay? This last line is wanting to know who's CPR, first aid, trained, and it goes up to everyone, okay, to get a 7. Right, internal communications, we're looking at how you communicate with your teachers, your staff, how many ways. If you look over on the left page, this is a may, it's not a must. They're giving you examples. You can have all those, you can have your own. But how are you communicating with staff? And then it's wanting to know about center-wide staff meetings. They want you to include your teachers on this. So they're asking specifically if teachers lead the discussions. So they're also wanting minutes. All you have to do, you have an agenda, okay? You have your teachers listed on the agenda to talk about whatever. And then for you to keep minutes, you just write on the agenda. Handwritten notes are fine. And then sending it out, 7.4, in advance of the next meeting. So you scan a copy of your minutes that you have handwritten notes on. You email that to the teachers before the next meeting so that they can remember and are aware and thinking about whatever. This last one is a written conflict resolution policy. You need a written policy, and asking if you've had training for your staff within the past year, and asking if it's comprehensive, and then that tells you here what it must include. Okay, I know I'm going fast, but stop me if you have questions. The next one is child assessment. So are you doing assessments? And is it a reliable and valid one? Head Start, yes, because you have to. And then are you providing safeguards? So is it in the child's first language? Do you get parent consent? You need it. And then you have to inform parents of the results regardless of the results. If it's, you don't need to do anything, parents, everything's good, you still have to let them know. This one is tricky, 7.2. The parents are involved in developing any special plans for their children based on the screening. You have to show documentation. Now, chances are you have at least one child. If I say it's tricky, it's not tricky to do this, but it's tricky if you don't have a child because you get a no. So if you have a child, you have to make sure that you show the documentation. We don't need the child's name. We don't need the parent's name. You can black that out. We just need a copy of the information. And then sharing, referring to whoever is appropriate, if it's speech, if it's physical therapy. And then a system to make sure that you're collaborating with a specialist, and that's like an IEP or IFSP, whatever you have. Number 11 is assessment. So are your teaching staff using an assessment for the children? And are they doing it with a reliable assessment and in multiple ways? So you have portfolios put together for children, so you can have a copy of the artwork that they've done throughout the year and observations that you've made throughout the year. So more than just this written assessment of how they're doing, but multiple ways of showing how they're doing. And then standards are considered in curriculum planning and individualized child assessment. It starts, yes, I know you have this. Individual centers, just make sure that you're using standards and look at the asterisks and see what that is. Aggregated, you do it on the computer, you pull everything together. You have the ability to do that. Budget planning. Head Start, you're going to have trouble with this one because they don't let you plan the budget. Individual centers, you're going to do well on this because you plan the budget. So are you involved as the administrator or the center manager or center director? Are you involved in the budget planning? Are you using the needs assessment as part of it? And are you achieving your written goals? So you have to have more than just numbers for your budget. You need goals and a needs assessment. What do you need for next year? What do you need for the future? What are your goals? All of that needs to be written and you need to show it. Your current operating budget, you've got to show that with your revenue and your expenditures. And then line items have to be shown. So when you're Head Start, you have to ask for all of this information from the main office, okay? Breaking it down, not just here's our lump sum, but we need things broken down to see. Okay, so is your projected for the future operating budget available by the beginning of the fourth quarter? So this gives you an example. If your fiscal year begins January 1, your fourth quarter begins October 1. So this is when they're asking, do you have your projected budget? It doesn't have to be this is exactly what we're going to do, but a projected budget that you can still tweak, okay? Got to have that available. And then, are you paying people on time, your insurance, taxes, all of that good? Do you have a line item in your budget for deferred maintenance? We got to get a roof in a couple of years. Are we putting money away for that? We need to replace equipment. Are we putting money away from that? And then quarterly cash flow projections and at least 2 other accepted practices provided for adequate cash flow. And you can check your asterisks up there for all of that. These are may include. You can have your own. That's fine. Okay, accounting practices. Do you have an income and expense statement that's generated quarterly? We can't accept monthly here, but they want you to look at quarterly because you can look at trends. A lot of times in the summer, your numbers may be lower. So when you look quarterly, you can see that over the past year. Does the administrator have access to a Head Start? You got another problem with this. It's okay. You can take your notes. It's not going to keep you from getting a good star rating, okay? So does the administrator generate that or have access to it? And then are you comparing income and expense statements to quarterly cash flow projections? Are you monitoring your fiscal status? Second line, examples of accounting checks and balances. Look back on the next page to see some of those. Do you have 2 examples? All of this should be in a policies and procedures manual and just have those pages available, and then 3 examples of that. The third line is who is looking at your accounting stuff? Is there an independent review? Is there a quarterly review? And this here, you can, if you have a board, a lot of church centers have a board anyway, and they may have an accountant or someone who's familiar with this stuff, and they can look over it, and that's fine. But this 7.3 is now asking if you have a certified public accountant that's looking at, and if you have a board member who is a CPA, then that works too. You don't necessarily have to pay them. All right, 14. A program evaluation. So they're wanting staff to annually give feedback on your program. They're wanting parents to annually give feedback on the program. And then they're wanting you to use those 2 things to make improvements on your program. This feedback loop is tricky, but the best example I can give, if you have a parent meeting or a staff meeting and they are saying, we would like for you to do this. For example, where my child was, they wanted the payment, because it was through the university, to be easier. So the director looked into it. She kept parents updated that she was working on it, talking to people. Then she gave the final result was a no. We had to keep it as it is. Even if it doesn't change, it's still a feedback loop So you're keeping people updated on what they've asked for, and then you've given them the outcome. Do you have a strategic plan? A mission or vision statement, a business or strategic plan is what it's asking here. This 5.1, 5.2, do you have an advisory board who worked on it? And the advisory board has to include parents. And then has it been reviewed at least every 5 years? Okay, so we're looking at how often it's looked at. Parents have to be on it. That one's kind of tricky too. Family partnerships, there's a lot going on this left page that's must. So pay attention to that. Okay, so do you have orientation procedures for your new families? They must include certain things, okay? And a lot of it is, well, all of it's written on that left page. I'm trying to get through so we can, we're running low on time. Asking about beliefs and cultures, child rearing practices. This one is tricky, 7.2, the consistency between home and center. You're doing it, but we have to show documentation. Have you adjusted menu for a child? Are you allowing a certain child to have a lovey or pacifier when you don't normally do it because of extenuating circumstances? Whatever it is, have an email. If you're talking with a parent, put it in writing and have an email, and then you can show your documentation. Are you communicating with your families regularly? It gives you asterisks on the next page or the previous page or examples of those and how many ways you're communicating. Are you having regular conferences at convenient times? Okay, 17. Do you have supports for your families? That's on the previous page as well. Are parents invited into the classroom or extended family members invited into the classroom? Are parents or family members involved in meetings and parties and asked to volunteer and sitting on governing or advisory boards? Marketing. Do you have marketing tools? Are they looked at? It shows it on the previous page, examples of those. Are they reviewed and made sure that there's no typos or anything like that? And then, do you keep records of all the families who call to inquire about your center? All families. Most places don't, but they're asking you to. And do you have a written guide? This one is another thing that most people don't. A written guide to train staff how to communicate with prospective families, whether it's on the phone or face-to-face. Community outreach. Are you involved in a local community organization? Like, it won't come to my brain right now. Let me see if I can find. Are you involved? Do you sit on any boards? Are you doing Rotary or Chamber? Any early childhood things, or CTF, anything like that? Are you or your staff? It doesn't have to be just you. And then, are you showing that you're a good neighbor, inviting community to events? Do you have in-kind from community organizations? And are you or your staff involved in a professional community? So check your asterisks there and see what that means. Technology. This should be easy peasy for everybody. These are all O's. I just have to see that you have computer, working internet, that teachers have access to the internet for their planning time. Or how are you using technology on 21? Record keeping, you do this, but do you have job specific training? Do your teachers have job specific training on that? So if you're using Head Start, for the tools that you use, I know that you have it, you just show your certificates. It's easy as that. And then, do you have a policy regarding use of technology? And is there a comprehensive policy? And you can see what that means. Making sure that everybody's professional on that. Staff qualifications. Okay, we're almost done. I hate to say this, Most administrators get a 1 because most have the degree. Even if they don't have a master's degree, that's fine. Most have the number. I need, okay, first of all, for you and all of your staff, your teaching staff, you need a transcript. If you don't have a transcript, I can't see how many early childhood hours you have. I also need your hiring letter, and like a resume, or the form that they filled out to work for you that has previous experience, because that comes in on everybody's years of previous experience, how long they've worked in the field. Okay, so those are the things that I need for everybody, all the teaching staff and you. This is where managers get dinged. Do you have management coursework? Most do not, because you didn't get into this field to be a manager usually. So just make sure that you have anything showing any management coursework that you've taken. But this is why most managers get a 1. And then years of experience, and then any contributions to the professional field. Okay, so lead teacher, and then you have teacher, and then you have assistant teacher. Whoever you have in your classroom, if you have more than one teacher, I will use, let me see if it's here, this to get their qualifications, and I will put it. So if you have 2 teachers, and like one is a lead and one is an assistant, if the assistant will get a better score for me putting her in the lead, I'll do that. But I need all of their information so that I can fill this out properly. I'll fill this out on each classroom, on each teacher, and then I'll come down here and put all their scores in, and then this is how we get your teacher scores, okay? So I'll fill out, like, get to it, this teacher, and or either lead teacher on everybody. So again, you'll see college, their early childhood courses and experience. And then the teacher, it's not asking for as much, but college, early childhood, and then experience. And then assistant teacher, it's asking if they have a high school diploma or GED, and any early childhood, and then experience. So I'll fill out one of these on you, and then I'll fill out one of these on each teacher, and then we'll get their score. And then at the very end, I'll put all of your numbers in and give you a total score. Now that total score does not have to be 5, 6, or 7 for you to even get a 5-star rating. So don't let that scare you, okay? One thing I think I forgot to mention, paid planning and preparation time can occur during the children's nap time, okay? They can do that during nap time, because they can be in the room while working on their computers planning while the children are asleep. Okay, I think that's it. What does anybody, unmute yourself if you have a question. You can ask a specific question. I'm scrolling through. Nobody? That was fast. That was a lot. Do you think you understand everything? Okay. So if you have any specific questions that come up after this training, shoot me an email and I'll do my very best to answer it if it's about the PASS. Okay, if it's about QRIS or the star rating, then you'll need to contact Brandy. She is the director, no longer the assistant director, but contact her if it's a specific star-related question. Okay?
Oh, Miss, good morning. I do have a question. I just want to be clear because it is a lot. And us in Head Start, the ones that you do have on the call with you right now, we are just coming into this position. So I just want to clarify, like, the person with our agency who is helping us, they've already been through this. So basically when they come see us, we're pretty much going to be shadowing them to make sure that we have everything in the right place, so that when you all come, we'll have everything we need in order to go through our rating.
So who's the person that you're shadowing? Who is that person?
Our agency, whoever the person is who is I guess over the
You mean enhancement or a Head Start person?
Head Start.
Okay. If there's somebody who's been working on this, that's put all this together, that's great. You're going to learn from them and participating in the assessment. Have you done any
Okay.
assessments?
So I would say yes and no. My previous job, because I was the assistant center manager of my Head Start area, I wasn't specifically dealing with this. It was the center manager.
Got it.
So I was kind of just responsible.
Where you are now, have they done an assessment? Have they had their assessment complete?
Just me and Jamie, who is on the call right now, we just started, like, I don't know if she started in July, but I started
Okay,
it.
but the previous center manager has started working on this.
I would assume, I'm not sure, because the whole thing of school being shut down.
Yeah, this whole COVID thing has messed everybody up, hasn't it? So
Yeah,
if you have, if the previous center manager started working on it, you need to get what she started working on, if she has anything. If not, you're starting from zero, and
zero.
you should look at this list, and you need to pull all of these things.
Christy, we have somebody, Karen Jared sends us this and has us put it in the area of the box. She separates everything for us and
Okay.
tells us how to do it.
That's helpful. And then
Yeah.
you just
Okay.
have to pull the specific documentation.
Okay.
She pulls the documentation and tells us, she pulls the policies and tells us exactly where to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain emails and stuff.
Yeah.
If you've never done it, you can contact me. I've been through it as a teacher, but there's certain emails and stuff that she has us pull.
Yeah, because there's some things that you won't have. You just won't have. So those emails you've got to pull and stick them in the right spot. And there,
Right.
like I said, there's some things you'll need it in this item, but you'll need it in another one too. So just make 2 copies because it makes life a whole lot easier.
Right.
And I don't, where you are, I don't know with your counties, because y'all are not in one of the counties we serve, but I do know that enhancement, if you start working with them, they can do your practice assessment. But you might want to contact them. That is Melissa Suddeth. I don't have her information where I can share on the screen, but her email is M, as in Melissa, D Suddeth, SUDDUTH, at CHES.ua.edu. And if you send that and it bounces back, and because you did, or I said it wrong, you didn't write it down, just email me and I can get you in touch with her. She is over enhancement, and you can start working with them to beef up what you have in the classroom or whatever it is that you need, not just for the pass assessment, for ITERs and ECHRs also. But they can help you with that to help you get a better star rating. That's what they are there for. They also do the BAS, the business administration skill, for the family daycare homes, but they can work with you on that. Anybody else? I know we're a little bit over our time, but thanks for hanging in there. No last minute questions. Okay, if something pops up in your head after we get off, shoot me an email. You have it. I'm about to email you the post-test and evaluation. Have that completed by tomorrow, I think at 5 or 3. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then you'll get your certificate within a few days. Just give Amanda a couple of days to get that to you, okay? All right, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Good luck with however your schools are opening or starting virtually or otherwise. And like I said, if you have questions, give me a call or an email. Okay, thanks, ladies.
You're welcome. Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.